Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome back to Marcel, and we'll dedicate the shiur to Auntie Leah's recovery. She seems to be doing okay from what I can gather, as okay as can be expected. Leah Bat Malka should have a refuah shlema. It's nearly her birthday. She's nearly 104. So we hope to be able to celebrate that with her. I'm hoping to be there for her birthday as well, Marcel. So hopefully we'll all celebrate together. All right, now we were talking at the end of last week. We had Stephen sing us out last week to the tune of Tika'u B'chodesh Chauffeur from the Rosh Hashanah Kiddush. And the reason we did that was because that was quoted in our Gemarah. Let's go straight to our Gemarah and have a look and see what this is all about. Because I left you last week with the question as to what this pasuk had anything to do with anything. So I'm going to take you to the...
Also, Johnny, can I just interrupt there?
Yeah.
With Tiku, that we also say it in Musaf.
We also say it in Musaf, yeah. And I think you said that right at the beginning, Stephen, even before Kiddush. How do I know that?
Ma'ariv, we say it for Ma'ariv before the Amida. And
then we say it in Musaf in the repetition as well.
Musaf, yeah.
And then it forms part of Kiddush. You're quite right. It's a very everybody knew that pasuk was related to Rosh Hashanah. It's a very well-known connection. The question is, why is that pasuk got anything to do with Rosh Hashanah? Obviously, Tika'u B'chodesh. Tika'u is talking about Tkiyot, so that's an obvious reason. But we're going to look at this in a little bit more detail now. How do I know that you mentioned that earlier? Because I just listened to the end of last week's shiur, so that I knew where we were up to. Here we go. Is this the right place? Hang on a second. Yes, here we go. I shall share the screen with you now. Okay, we're on page 59 of the Steinsaltz Gemarah, the bottom of 11b in the Vilna Shas. And we were talking over here. Let's go from our little symbol here. Let's go back a couple of lines and go from here. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis learned, Ein ma'abrim et hashanim ela biYehuda. We only do the oh no, we did that already. No, let's not go from there. Let's go from the next paragraph. I beg your pardon. This is the one I want to go from. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Ein ma'abrin et hashana ela bayom. You can only intercalate the year or make the announcement of the intercalation of the year during the day. Ve'im ibruha balayla, and if you did it at night, eina ma'uberet, it doesn't count. It's not intercalated. Ve'ein mekadshin et hachodesh ela bayom, and you can only sanctify the new moon. In other words, decide whether you're going to intercalate the month and have an extra day in the month, like we have in this coming month. We're going to bench Rosh Chodesh. We're going to do Mavarchin HaChodesh on Shabbat, and there are 2 days of Rosh Chodesh this coming month of Adar Rishon, which means that they have in effect intercalated the month, and we have a 30-day month of Shvat, and we'll have 2 days Rosh Chodesh. The 30th
Michael Krauss is there,
and then the 1st of Adar Rishon. So you can only do that during the day. Doesn't work. And we spoke a couple of weeks ago about the implications of that, meaning that's why we don't repeat Ya'aleh V'yovo at Ma'ariv if you forget to say it in Shmona Esrei. Whereas you do have to repeat it if you forget to say it in Shachrit and Mincha. We went through that either last week or the week before. Now, this is where we got to at the end of last week. Amar Rav Abba. Rav Abba says, Mikra. Okay, you have given me a statement there that you don't sanctify the new moon and you don't intercalate the year at night. So, Mikra, I want some kind of scriptural proof for that. You can't just make a statement like that. You have to back it up. And so he brings a pasuk. Sound the shofar on the new moon, and I'm not going to translate it as it is here. I'm going to take you straight away to Tehillim, chapter 81, verse 4, which is where it comes from. And Leon is going to read the translation that he has. There it is on the screen for you. And you will see a different translation on the screen to the one you've got in your Gemarah. But let's hear what Leon's translation in the art scroll says on Tehillim 81:4.
Blow the shofar at the moon's renewal, at the time appointed for our festive day.
Okay, stop there. So, Bakeseh leyom chagenu. On the day that this was appointed, the day which was appointed for our festival. Now, the simple explanation of that pasuk is very clear, isn't it? Sound the shofar, b'chodesh, in the month, and he says here on the new moon, chodesh meaning Rosh Chodesh, b'keseh leyom chagenu, on the appointed time for the day of our festival. Now, I ask you a question, our usual question. If the verse stopped at Tika'u b'chodesh shofar and didn't say b'keseh leyom chagenu, would we be any worse off? In other words, what does the end of that pasuk teach us? If you just say, sound the shofar on the Rosh Chodesh, on that Rosh Chodesh, well, you might think that you sound the shofar on every Rosh Chodesh, right? So the pasuk comes along and says, Bakeseh leyom chagenu, on the appointed time for the day of our festival. Now, there is only one festival, is there not, which is on Rosh Chodesh, and that is Rosh Hashanah, and that is when we blow the shofar. So you do need the end of the pasuk, because otherwise you might think that you blow the shofar on every Rosh Chodesh. So you need to be told that when are you going to blow this shofar? On the time which was appointed for our festivals, which is Rosh Chodesh. Therefore, we're referring to Rosh Hashanah. Now, let's switch back to the Gemarah. Let's switch back to the Gemarah. And let me see if I can find that there. Should have that on the screen now, yeah? Gemarah with the map? Yeah? No?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Right. So what does he say? He translates it like this. Sound the shofar at the new moon at the concealed time for our festival day. Not the appointed time of our festival day. The concealed time for our festival day. Now, why has he translated that word as concealed? What's concealed got to do with anything here? We understand what keseh means in terms of appointed, because I've just explained it to you. If you didn't have that, you might think that it was every Rosh Chodesh, but it's not. It's only on Rosh Hashanah, a day which has been appointed as a festival. So why is the Gemarah now, right, as Rav Steinsaltz translated that as that word bakeseh as concealed time for our festival day? Who would like to offer an explanation? First of all, before we offer an explanation to that, who would like to offer an etymological comment on the word keseh? What word do you see and know from your everyday Ivrit life? Those of you who are still going to Ulpan will have learned this, I'm sure. What word is similar to that which gives us the translation of Keser being concealed?
No idea.
Anyone?
Kisei, a chair.
Kisei, a chair. Well, Kisei, a chair's got an aleph in it, and not a hey. So I'm going to say no to that. Although I suppose the chair conceals, when you're sat on it, the chair is concealed by your bottom, but I think that's probably stretching it a bit. No, I don't think Kisei. Any others? Okay, this is going to be a sexist comment, but there you go. Ladies, when you do your cooking, or gentlemen, even if you do any cooking, I don't, that's why I can say that, and you want to cook something in the oven, you might put a lid on it. And when you go and buy your food, or you go buy something in one of those shops where you get stuff weighed out, they would put a lid on it. And what is the word for a lid in Hebrew? Anyone know? Marcel, unmute yourself and tell us. Marcel, you're muted.
Michse.
Michse, nachon. Michse. Mem, kaf, samach, hey. And that is from the verb lekasot, which means to cover. Michse is a cover or a lid. And what does the lid do? It conceals what's inside. So that's the connection between keseh, being concealed, and a lid. Kisui rosh. Avril has a kisui rosh on at the moment. She has a head covering, kisui rosh, because it is concealing her head, or her hair at least. Kisui rosh is what is the title, the generic title for all the head coverings that ladies wear, going from doilies that you wear when you go to shul on Rosh Hashanah, if you're that way inclined, through to full-bodied sheitlach. They're all called kisui rosh, head coverings, and it's the same word, because they are concealing the hair. So keser is concealment. Okay, very good. Right, now, that tells us what the word, where it comes from, but what's this got to do with anything? Why have they changed this translation from appointed to concealed when we're talking about sounding the shofar on Rosh Hashanah?
Because I don't think they didn't want people to know when Rosh Hashanah was, I think. They didn't announce the times. Didn't Ben Rosh Chodesh the month before, and they kept it a secret.
Okay. That isn't the reason, but that's true. And we spoke about that last week, and I said,
yeah,
you mentioned it last week.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that right now, since you've raised it again. So we'll just put our question onto one side. Johnny quite correctly pointed out last week, and again just now, that the only month that we do not announce ahead of time is Rosh Hashanah, is Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, the first of Tishrei. Every other month we announce. This Shabbat we will announce Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon, but we do not announce Chodesh Tishrei. So the last Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah, the last Shabbat of Elul, should be Shabbat Mevorchin, and it is not. Anybody know why?
To keep the Roman away.
Say that again, Leon.
To keep the Roman police, if you like, away, not to tell them what's going on.
Well, that's quite a good guess, but it's not quite right.
I think to do with the Malach and Maves, isn't it, Johnny?
It's to keep the Satan away.
Yeah, the Satan, yeah.
It's to keep the Satan away. Now, you could argue, Leon, that the Roman soldiers were the embodiment of Satan. So the rabbis tell us that on Rosh Hashanah, the Satan, as it were, comes along and tries to make us guilty. He is the Satan is the prosecuting counsel against us in our day of judgment. We know that Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment, when we all sit being judged by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the Satan, as it were, is the prosecuting counsel who comes along and says what terrible things we've done throughout the year. And so, as it were, in order to put him off so he doesn't know when to show up to court, we don't announce the new moon. There is also, that is also one of the reasons, not the main reason, but one of the reasons given why we do not sound the shofar on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Lebalbel et Satan, say the rabbis, to confuse the Satan. So the Satan doesn't know what's going on because he thinks it's all over, because there's no blowing of the shofar, because there has been throughout the whole month of Elul. It's all a bit, I don't know, doesn't quite push my buttons, but still, that's what we were taught in kindergarten, wasn't it? But that's why we don't bless the new moon for Chodesh Tishrei. Okay, now somebody else was going to suggest a reason why concealed time for our festival is here. I think, Stephen, were you going to say something?
No, I wasn't, but I was going to say in Rabbi Sachs's Machzor, he translates it as on our feast day when the moon is hidden.
Oh, so Rabbi Sachs, Zichrono Livracha, has learnt this Gemara, because that's exactly what we're talking about. The concealment that we're talking about is the concealment of the moon. So again, let's look at the pasuk. Sound the shofar at the new moon. Okay, if we stop there, we'd have to do shofar every Rosh Chodesh. Says the pasuk, but only on the festival day where the moon is concealed. Now then, which festival? Well, let's go through them. Pesach. What date is Pesach? What
15th.
date? The 15th of Nisan. So what does the moon look like on Pesach?
Halfway.
Yeah, it's full moon.
Oh, full.
Yes.
Yeah, 15th of the month is a full moon. Okay, Shavuot is the 6th or the 7th of Sivan, isn't it? So the moon will look about a quarter. Okay, there'll be a half moon because it'll be halfway to full moon. Full moon's on the 14th or 15th, so the 7th is going to be a quarter moon. Let's move on to Sukkot. What date is Sukkot?
Sukkot is always a full moon. I know that we built a window into our sukkah so we could see the full moon on the rare occasion that it wasn't raining in Seattle.
Yes, similarly, in Manchester where it always rains as well. I think Seattle's got fairly similar rainfall to Manchester, so we can all, most of us can appreciate what you're saying there, Sharon. Yes, Sukkot is the 15th of Tishrei, so it's also a full moon. Okay, we then move on to Shmini Atzeret, which is 7 days later. That's a quarter moon the other way, because it's a half moon. It's a quarter of the way, 3/4 of the way through the cycle. So every Chag, you can see the moon, except for one. Let me share this screen with you. I've had this screen ready for 3 weeks. This is how long it's taken us to get to this bit. I've had this ready for 3 weeks for you. Can you see that? Okay, this is the sunlight, and this is why the moon, a little bit of astrology here. No, not astrology, astronomy. This is why the moon looks how it looks. We start off with at the beginning of the month where we can't see anything at all because the earth and the moon and the sun are such that the sunlight does not reflect, and therefore you don't see any of the moon at all because it is completely hidden. And then as we go along, we have that's where we get to for around about Shavuot here, the first quarter of the month. And then we've got the full moon, that's Pesach and Sukkot. And then we've got the third quarter over here down the bottom, that is Shmini Atzeret. And then as we get through, we start all over again. So the only festival that we see a concealed moon, the moon is completely concealed, is the festival which is on the first of the month. which is, of course, Rosh Hashanah. So this picture here shows us what the moon looks like on each of the festivals that we have throughout the year. And therefore, we can see very clearly that when the Pasuk in Tehillim 81:4 says, sound the shofar on the day when your festival, there is concealment of your festival, this is what it's referring to. Stephen, can you read out for us what Rabbi Sachs translates it again? I've forgotten the exact expression.
He says, sound the shofar on the new moon, on our feast day when the moon is hidden.
There we go. Sound the, say it again. Sound the,
sound the shofar on the new moon.
Right.
On our feast day when the moon is hidden.
Right, exactly. That's a brilliant translation. Simple and brilliant and completely clear from that. Had we had that translation straight away, then I wouldn't have needed to show you this picture and I wouldn't have had to go through all that business about concealment. Look at it, because Rabbi Sachs, of course, is incorporated into his genius one-sentence translation, everything that we're learning now in this Gemarah. So let's go back to the Gemarah. Let's go back to the Gemarah and get you back on the screen. Share screen, Gemarah, share. Right. So remember what this is all about. This is Rav Abba said, I want a scriptural proof why we cannot intercalate either the month or the year at night and only during the day. And he brings this pasuk, sound the shofar at the new moon at the concealed time for our festival day. So what? What's that got to, how does that prove that the intercalation can only take place during the day? Okay, he's going to explain it to us. So the Gemarah says, Ezahu chag shehachodesh mitkaseh bo. On which festival is it that the moon is mitkaseh, covered, from that same word michseh, lid? In other words, you could say, on which festival is it that the moon has a lid on and we can't see it? Have omer ze Rosh Hashanah. You have to say that that's Rosh Hashanah, as we've just said. And then we have to bring the next verse, because we've only quoted half of Kiddush on Rosh Hashanah, haven't we? Let's go back to Tehillim. Let's go back to Tehillim 81:4, and we'll see, where are we? Tehillim 81:4, there we go. Share screen, Tehillim 81:4. Sound the shofar on the new moon on the appointed time for the day of our festival, or the concealed time for the day of our festival. Verse 5, Leon.
Because it is a decree for Israel, a judgment day for the God of Jacob.
Okay, now, we knew that because we know the Kiddush and we know the Shemona Esrei for Rosh Hashanah. We would be thinking that it would be all one pasuk. It isn't actually, it's two pasukim. Tiku b'chodesh shofar b'kesel yom chagenu ki, because chok leYisrael. What's a chok? A chok is a statute. When I was a kid and we learned a Parashat Chukat in Chumash, I must have been about, I don't know, 5 or 6 when I started to learn Chumash, maybe even earlier. And it was Zod Chukat Torah. These are the statutes of the Torah. I thought they were talking about statues. I never heard of that word statute. What 5-year-old or 6-year-old knows what a statute is? I'm still not sure I know what it is. And then, of course, as we got a little bit more understanding, we understood the pshat of chok, meaning a law which was something that didn't have an obvious explanation. So the what's the word I'm looking for? The classical example of a chok, of a statute, as we'll call it, because that's what everybody calls it, of one of these laws which doesn't seemingly have an explanation, is what? What is the The classical example given?
The red heifer.
The red heifer, the para aduma, correct. The red heifer, because it's a weird thing. Why should you have to burn a red heifer and dip hyssop into it and sprinkle the ashes on somebody who's pure, impure, and they become pure, and the person that does it who was pure then becomes impure? It's bonkers. The whole thing seemingly has no logic to it at all, and that is the classical chok, a statute. Now, on the other hand, in this pasuk, we have another word, mishpat. Ki chok liYisrael. This is a statute for Israel. Mishpat lelohei Yaakov. It is a judgment. Mishpat is a judgment. Very appropriate. This week's parsha is called Mishpatim. Marcel Glaski's bar mitzvah sedra. We should wish Marcel a happy birthday. Is it 70 years since your bar mitzvah, Marcel, this week?
No, I'm going to be 82. So
69 years since your bar mitzvah. 69 years since your bar mitzvah. Admea v'esrim. Okay, so Marcel's bar mitzvah sedra mishpatim, which is the plural of the word mishpat. And of course, the sedra is all about the laws of civil justice, all the laws of bein adam lechavero, between man and man. So here they're making a distinction. This pasuk is making a distinction between the two types of laws we have, the chok, chukim, and the mishpat, the mishpatim. And so let's go back to the Gemarah and see what the Gemarah does, as it were, with our second pasuk here. What does it do with this pasuk? Why is it quoting this? Let me take you back to the Gemarah. I know we're flicking back and forth here, but can't be helped. Go back to the Gemarah. There's probably a more efficient way of doing this sharing, but I don't know what it is, so we'll just have to stick with this. So the Gemarah says, our pasuk, which festival is that? That's Rosh Hashanah. And then says the pasuk, Ki chok liYisrael, who? Mishpat lelohei Yaakov. For it is a statute for Israel, a judgment of the God of Jacob. And then he says, Ma mishpat bayom, af kiddush hachodesh bayom. Just as mishpat, a civil justice, a civil court case, has to be done during the day, that's mishpat, and I'm going to show you why that is the case in a moment. Accept it for the second, that judgment can only be done during the day, mishpat. Just as judgment can only be done during the day, af kiddush hachodesh bayom. Similarly, this kiddush hachodesh, this sanctification of the new moon, can only be done during the day. So we've got a few questions to ask now. First of all, why and how? What is the proof that civil justice or civil judgment, as he puts it there, can only be done during the day? How do we know that? Who said so? Why can't we have a court case at night? Why is it that court cases can only be during the day? I always thought because it was the judges were lazy and they knocked off at 4:30. But there is apparently a scriptural support for this. Anybody like to show me or suggest a scriptural support for the fact that judgment can only be done during the day? I am excluding Leon from this question because he's had a clue already. Anyone? David, have you any
something
idea?
To do with Yom Kippur?
No.
Something to do with Yom Kippur?
No. David?
I've got the same notes as you and Leon. So.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, it's very honest of you to own up and not let us think that you are independently brilliant, which of course you are. By the way, I always used to do that. I think I might have told you this already. When I used to learn Gemarah with my Rabbi, I used to use the art scroll, and I used to quickly look at the notes at the bottom. And then I'd come up with this brilliant question, which I'd got from the art scroll notes at the bottom, and pretend that it was my own question. I was really very, very dishonest of me. And I hold my hand up now and admit my sins of those days. Right.
Is it possible that all of when we left Egypt, we left in the daytime? Maybe the daytime is very, very important for God to do his operation, so to speak. You think that has anything to do with it? That's the Torah time is in the daytime. We left Egypt in the daytime.
That is definitely true, Nachum. The day is definitely extremely important. We mentioned it last week. I don't think you were with us last week's share, but you may have heard it. We spoke about when a Brit can be done. A Brit can only be done during the day because it says Bayom Hashmini, on the 8th day. So the Yom is definitely, the day time is definitely an important time. I'm going to show you a pasuk now, which proves it, and this is where we get it from. And I'm going to take you to the parasha of Kitetze, and it is, if you want to look it up, it is in chapter 21 of Dvarim, and I'll put it on the screen for you now. And verse 15, please, Leon.
16 or 15?
We'll start with 15, please.
Right. Excuse me. If a man will have 2 wives, one beloved and one hated, and they bear him sons, the beloved one and the hated one, and the firstborn son is the hated one's, then it shall be that on the day that he causes his sons to inherit whatever will be his, he cannot give the right of the firstborn to the son of the beloved one ahead of the son of the hated one, the firstborn.
Okay, that's a very complicated translation, that. I will paraphrase. Basically, if you've got a man has 2 wives, they both have kids, he's got one favorite wife, but the firstborn came from the least favorite wife. He's not allowed to do what Yaakov Avinu did and bypass the real firstborn and give the double portion to the son of the favorite wife. That is not allowed, and it's in there as a specific halakha, because of course what we might do is to look at Yaakov Avinu and say, well, it's okay for him, and then of course Yaakov Avinu is the great man, one of our fathers, and therefore we learn from his actions. The Torah tells us, no, you can't do that. Now, that is the meaning of those verses, but the Gemara drills down into the verses and uses this expression here and asks a question. And he says, if the verse would say, when it comes to the time when you will bequeath your property to your sons, blah, 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 you can't do this. But it doesn't say that. The Torah says, V'haya b'yom hanchilo et banav. On the day that you will do your will and your last will and testament, on the day that you will execute your wishes, or your wishes will be executed on your behalf. And the Gemara takes that word there, bayom, on the day of this bequeathing. That is a seemingly superfluous word, and the Gemara uses that to expound that judgment of all sorts, of all kinds, all the judgments that are similar to this, i.e. all civil cases, must be heard during the day and must be executed during the day. That is where the Gemara gets our concept that mishpat has to take place during the day. Right, we've got that now. We now know.
Johnny,
Yes.
when we finally get to that Gemara, and and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, probably in 3-4 years' time, it's in chapter 4. The Gemarah there quotes a totally contradictory verse from last week's parasha. Can you guess what that is?
Last week's parasha being Yitro.
Yeah.
You mean when you say contradictory, you mean contradictory to the concept of inheritance or the day and night?
No, of Dinei Mama not taking place during the daytime only.
Okay, it must be something to do with Yitro's advice to Moshe.
Yeah.
And he said, you're standing here from morning to evening. You're sitting here morning to evening, and the people are stood there all day long.
Okay, go to the end of that parasha.
Go on.
B'shaftu et ha'am b'chol et.
B'chol et, at all times. Yes,
yeah.
At all times. Yeah. And what does the Gemarah conclude there in chapter 4?
Let's wait till we get there. Yeah.
We might not be here by then.
We will.
All right.
Can we hear it? Because to be quite honest, I think it's very contrived. So far, I can see why it's in the Baraita, because it does seem quite artificial, this argument.
Yes, I agree with you, Julia. I think that the way it smacks to me, this may be a bit heretical, so if it is, I apologize. It's not meant to be heretical. The way it seems to me is that there is a concept that it has to be done in the day. And what they've done is they've tried to find something as a support, and this is sort of the best they can do.
Look at note 26 in Art Scroll, Johnny, which is one of the hermeneutical Hekesh.
I'm coming to the Hekesh in a sec, but the Hekesh has to be the Hekesh is what takes it from the judgment on the day to the intercalation. It doesn't tell us about the judgment on the day itself.
But one word. The one word is the inference.
Yeah, I know, but that's I understand where Julia is coming from.
Yeah, but that is one of the accepted hermeneutical rules.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll answer that. We'll answer Julia's query in that regard, because I looked up the rules of Hekesh actually in detail. I will come to that in a sec when we talk about the Hekesh. So they've looked for a support, and we have 13 exegetical principles of Rabbi Ishmael that we all say every morning. Rabbi Ishmael, Rabbi Shlosh Esrei Midot HaTorah Nidreshet B'hem. And one of them is a Gezeirah Shava. It's the second one, if I'm not mistaken. Kal v'choma Gezeirah Shava, I think is number 2. Gezeirah Shava is when you have a similar word in two similar places, you can learn one thing from another. Now, I always had a bit of a problem with the Gezeirah Shava, because you can find all sorts of places where the same word is said. Look at Vayomer Moshe, Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. How many times does it say that? It'll be Daber Hashem el Moshe Aleimor. It says it hundreds of times. And you don't go along saying, well, it says that there and it says that there, so it must be the same. The bottom line is that Lieberman cannot go along making his own Gezeirah Shavas. Okay, the Gezeirah Shava, these comparisons, these learnings from one word to another are passed down, are part of the oral tradition, are passed down from generation to generation, and you can't go along making up your own ones. So that's the sort of answer to my conundrum. My question was one of consistency. If you're going to say Gezeirah Shava, the one word says here and it says there somewhere else the same word, and then you're going to then learn one thing from another, well, then you have to do it consistently. Well, the answer is you don't have to do it consistently, because only certain ones of these have meaning, and those were decided by Chazal, by the Chachamim Zichronam Livracha, by the sages, and you can't just add in your own. So when you say it's contrived, Julia, it appears to me a little contrived too. I understand exactly where you're coming from. It's part of our emunat chachamim. It's part of our belief and our faith in the sages of old, that they are passing on or have passed on faithfully the traditions that were originated at Har Sinai to Moshe Rabbeinu in one way or another. It is, I suppose we were talking about this, I think, in one of the shiurim, I can't remember which one it was, when we were talking about the Karaites and the Sumerians who don't believe in the Torah Shabbat Peh. They don't believe in the oral law, and they would say, nah, not having that. So they would be, you on this occasion would be with the Karaites, Julia. Not that I'm accusing you of heresy or anything like that, God forbid. So they learn out from here. Let's go back to the Gemarah now. Let's go back to the Gemarah. I know we're chopping and changing here, but can't be helped. Sanhedrin. Okay, have you got the screen on now, Gemarah? Yes, okay, good. So, just as civil judgment is done during the day, we've just proved that Ma Mishpat Bayom, because of what it's just said in Parashat Ki Teitzei, Af Kiddush HaChodesh, therefore Kiddush HaChodesh is also during the day. What has Kiddush HaChodesh got to do with our pasuk? Our pasuk here says, Ki chok leYisrael, who? Mishpat leLohe Yaakov. Mishpat, I understand. Mishpat, you've told me that judgment has to be done during the day. Okay, you've proved that to me. Contrived or not, you've proved it to me. What's that got to do with Kiddush HaChodesh? Where is the comparison here? How can you learn Kiddush HaChodesh, the sanctification of the month, and therefore the intercalation of the year as well, from this pasuk? What's that? Where's the connection? Anybody? Yes,
to
David.
Bachodesh Shofar.
Okay, Bachodesh Shofar. Okay, and Bachodesh Shofar, on the new moon you will send this sound the shofar, and therefore that has to be done by the day because these two things are connected. But we have a hekesh, don't we? We have a hekesh means a comparison. We have made a comparison from the end of this pasuk, Mishpat leLohe Yaakov, and we made a comparison to the beginning of the pasuk, Ki chok leYisrael. What chok are we talking about here? What statute are we talking about? Well, the statute that we're talking about is the declaration of the new moon. That is called a chok. That is referred to as a chok leYisrael. The declaration of a new moon is put in the hands of man, of Yisrael. Remember, remember the story of Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Yehoshua, when Rabbi Gamliel said the month is intercalated. Rabbi Yehoshua says it shouldn't be, and Rabbi Gamliel made him come on the day that he thought was Yom Kippur. He made him come with his money and his staff. Remember that story from a few weeks ago? That proves to us that the declaration of the timings of the festivals, of when Rosh Chodesh is, and therefore, of course, when the Chagim, including Yom Kippur, is, rests with Yisrael. And that is a chok leYisrael. That is a chok. That is a judgment. That is a judgment that Yisrael does. That's not a judgment that God does. In contrast to Mishpat leLohe Yaakov, the judgment of the God of Jacob. When is the judgment of the God of Jacob? When does the God of Jacob? When does the God of Jacob do his judgment?
Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah. So Mishpat leLohe Yaakov, the judgment is done on Rosh Hashanah, and that judgment has to be done when? During the day, because we've got that bayom, okay? And then they make the comparison of the end of the pasuk to the beginning. So if the day of judgment, i.e. Rosh Hashanah, is done during the day, so too is the chok. And the chok that they're referring to is the sanctification of the new moon. Now, that is also contrived. And that is classical Gemarah logic. And you take a position, you prove that position with a pasuk, and then you say, okay, I've proved that position. It's a bit like building up a mathematical theorem. Remember how you had all those theorems that you used to have to learn in geometry? You'd start on a position, and then you'd move to the next premise, and the next premise, and the next premise. If one of those premises was false to start with, the whole thing came tumbling down. So that's how the Gemarah works out its halacha in the end. It starts from a position where it proves a point, and then it says, okay, that's now a given. Whether it's contrived or not, it's a given. And now from that point, I can take that as a given, and I can compare it to other things, and I can then get to the next stage, which is a given then, and then I get to the next stage still. So if you look at the stages in this logic, we've said mishpat has to be done during the day. Mishpat Lelohei Yaakov refers to Rosh Hashanah. That's done during the day of Rosh Hashanah. That is also Tik'u B'chodesh Shofar. That is the day when we sound the shofar. That is also V'keser L'yom Chagenu. That is the day when the moon is concealed. And because that's done during the day, and we have a pasuk that says Chok L'Yisrael Hu Mishpat Lelohei Yaakov in the same pasuk, we can then compare by Hekesh, which is a type of Gezerah Shavah. It's a type of exegetical process, hermeneutical process. What's the difference between exegesis and hermeneutical process, David? I don't know. Do you?
Yeah, the hermeneutical is just rules of the hermeneutic, the 13 rules, the way
so
of.
Why does it sometimes translated as 13 exegetical principles?
Exegesis is any Bible study from the language, from Peshat, from Drach. So exegetical.
So are you saying that
it's just basic Bible commentary,
whereas
hermeneutical are the specific hermeneutical rules?
Okay, so are you saying that hermeneutical rules are part of the generic term of exegesis? They are a subsection of it? Okay.
Yes.
Fine, I understand now. Thank you. Anyway, so we are now taking one of those hermeneutical rules, Gezerah Shavah, and a subtype of Gezerah Shavah is this thing called Hekish, which means comparison. And we're saying that we've now proved that judgment, mishpat, must take place during the day. And therefore, because it's in the same pasuk, we can now say that chok has to take place during the day. Which chok are we talking about? We're talking about Kiddush HaChodesh. We're talking about intercalation of a month. And therefore, next stage, now we've proved that intercalation of a month must take place during the day. We can now say the intercalation of the year must also take place only during the day because of the Hekish there. So you've got a Hekish on a Hekish on a Hekish. 3 Hekeshim, if you like, one after the other. And that is classical Gemarah logic, for which is probably, I don't know, it's probably the first real bit of classical Gemarah logic that we've come across so far, or at least it's the most clear piece of Gemarah logic that we've come so far in our learning to date. And so there we go. That is the proof, and that's it for that piece of Gemarah. That is an accepted now. That is now a given, and it then, one sec, David. It then translates from the Gemarah into the poskim, and the halacha was that you did not do Kiddush HaChodesh or Ibur Hashanah. You did not intercalate year or month at night. And then, as we said a week or two ago, that translates itself into halacha for us with regard to Yaleh V'Yavo on Rosh Chodesh in davening. David, and then Johnny. David.
Yeah, a few things here. First of all, there's another halacha that's derived from this, which is quite obvious, to do with Rosh Hashanah and Shofar.
We only do it during the day.
Correct.
That's a good question, actually. That would be a good question, because you would normally expect the mitzvah to be done straight away, wouldn't you? Pesach, for example, we do the matzah at night. We do Korban Pesach immediately after nightfall. We don't wait till the following day.
Okay, but Lulav would
Okay, I'm
Lulav
coming
is
to Lulav
Bayom.
in a minute. I'm coming to Lulav. Sukkah, we do at night, don't we? The mitzvah of Sukkah, straight after night, that's when we do it. We do the Lulav. Why do we do the Lulav the following day?
Ulekachtem lachem bayom harishon.
Thank you very much. Ulekachtem lachem, you shall take for yourself bayom harishon. It's another hekesh. On the first day, same as bayom hashmini for a brit milah, the same as bayom hanchilo, on the day that you will do your bequeathing. When we see that word bayom, it means bayom. And this is all, if you like, strengthening our belief, if you like, in that Gezerah Shavah, that hekish of bayom. Bayom means bayom. On Rosh Chodesh, what does it say about Rosh Chodesh? Does it say on the day there about Tika'u b'Chodesh in Tika'u on Rosh Hashanah Chad b'Chodesh b'Yom Chodesh Hashvi? What's it say there, David?
Uvachodesh hashvi be'echad lachodesh mikra kodesh yelachem yom truah.
Yom truah. There you go. Yom truah. Yom truah. It's a day of blowing. So again, that's why you don't blow at night, because it says the word yom. All of these things pass us by when we read them. But when you stop and you and analyze them to the depth that these great minds, these great chachamim, remember, this is phenomenal. We think we're all sophisticated in the 21st century, and the minds that these people had, the sophistication of their logic and the depth of their analysis was just phenomenal. These words pass us by. They didn't pass them by. So that's why we do the shofar on the day. Yes, David, you had another thing.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to take Nachum's point a stage further as well, where he's comparing this with going out of Egypt during the day. And there's a fascinating connection here as well. We've concentrated on one specific day of the year that we recite this pasuk, but of course we do it far more often than just on that 1 or 2 days a year.
Go on. When else do we say this verse?
You said I saw you saying it this morning.
Oh, yeah, shiur shel yom.
Correct.
Yes, shiur shel yom, that's right.
Okay, for which day?
Well, if you saw me this morning, it must be Thursday.
Correct. And what's one of the reasons why we say this psalm on Thursday?
I'm going to have to get it out. There we go. Get my trusty Rinat Yisrael Sidor, which is falling apart. Which is not surprising. It was bought in 1991. How old's that? 30 odd years, this. Okay. Hayom Yom Chamishi b'Shabbat. This is Tehillim 81, as we've said before. I don't know. Why is it that?
Okay. So start from verse 6.
Okay, let's get it on the screen so everybody can see it. Let's get it on the screen. Tehillim chapter 81. There we go. It's on the screen for you now. Okay, verse 6. Leon, that's verse 6.
He appointed it as a testimony for Joseph when he went out over the land of Egypt, when I heard a language unknown to me.
And the next verse.
Says God, I removed his shoulder from the burden, his hands passed from the kettle.
Okay, this is an inference to Yetziat Mitzrayim.
Which
Okay.
took place on a Thursday.
Correct.
Yes, the Yetziat
And
Mitzrayim.
what's the shofar got to do with Yetziat Mitzrayim?
Well,
When else was the shofar blown?
when they went out when they traveled, when they journeyed, when they went out to war.
Come back to that, yeah. The Yovel.
Oh, the Yovel, yes, the Yovel. After that was at Sukkot time.
What's the significance of blowing the shofar at the Yovel?
Freedom of slavery.
Correct.
Wow, that is really, now that's contrived, but it's brilliant.
It's not contrived. It's in the Mephorshim.
Yeah, no, I was being facetious. No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Okay, so now we've all learned something. Why that is the daily psalm for Thursday is because it refers to Yetziat Mitzrayim, which took place on a Thursday. How do we know Yetziat Mitzrayim took place on a Thursday?
And the other connection between Rosh Hashanah and the shofar and Pesach?
The other connection between Rosh Hashanah, shofar, and the Pesach. So the Yovel, you get freedom of slavery.
Yeah.
Go on.
Again, according to Chazal, the actual slavery ceased on Rosh Hashanah.
Previous Rosh Hashanah.
The previous Rosh Hashanah.
I'd heard that I'd read somewhere that the slavery stopped when the plagues started. So is that the Mephorshim say the plague started at Rosh Hashanah? Is that how it works? That's
one of the explanations, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Okay, let's just summarize that. So Tehillim 81:4 is the Shir Shel Yom of today. Tikur b'chodesh shofar b'keser liyom chagenu. We've learned about a bit of astronomy. We've learned a bit of etymology of the word keser. We've learned several hekeshim, several comparisons to get to the fact that our Gemarah says you can only intercalate during the day. And we've reminded ourselves that Yetziat Mitzrayim was on a Thursday. Wow, all that in one little Gemarah share.
How do we know it's a Thursday, you're asking yourself before?
Yes, how do we know it's a Thursday?
I don't know.
Okay, so what's 4 days before Thursday? Okay, I've just thought the answer now. They had to take the Korban Pesach, didn't they? Several days before the Yetziat Mitzrayim. Well, that was a Shabbos. So they had to the Mephorshim Chazal say that Yetziat Mitzrayim worked out it was on a Thursday.
I don't even need Mephorshim because it says Be'asor lachodesh hazeh yikchu lachem seh, that they took it on the 10th, and the Mephorshim said the 10th was Shabbos. What was part of the nace that they had to be dochesh Shabbat in order to take the lamb.
So that's how we get to it being a Thursday.
Yeah.
And I've been saying that Shir Shel Yom of Thursday for many years, probably over 50 anyway, that's for sure. And I never knew that is why you say it on a Thursday. So thank you very much for that. I definitely think we've learned quite a lot today in our Gemarah share, and we even did a bit of Gemarah. I didn't get to the next bit that I thought I would get to, but at least now I can take off my computer the picture of the
Astronomy.
The astronomy, which I've had on there for about 3 weeks.
I was going to say that the Adim used to see the moon at night.
Yeah.
So how would they be able to intercalate the month at night time? Because they come to Jerusalem in the morning and say we've seen it last night. So they couldn't do it at night.
No, they saw it at night, obviously.
Yeah, they saw it at night, yes.
But no, when they say the intercalation, it means the announcement. The official announcement had to be during the day.
Yeah. But they couldn't make it. They couldn't make the announcements at night because they hadn't got the information yet.
Well, what if they came at the beginning of the night?
Yeah. Okay.
So let's say they arrived. Let's say nightfall was 7 o'clock. They saw it, and they were right next door to the Beis Din, and they arrived at 7:30. They could have, and I said, right, you're right. We could make the announcement now, but you can't. You have to wait till the morning.
Okay. The other thing I was going to ask you about Yala V'Yovel from last week, when I said that if I forgot it, I went straight to Hallel. What's wrong in saying after Modim? I know it should be after Ritzay, but
because you've interrupted.
Is there anything wrong in that?
You need to go back to Ritzay because it's not in its right place.
Right. Okay.
There are certain things
No,
that
but you had to go back the whole Shemona Esrei, no?
only if you finished.
Only finished.
If you remember before you finished, and after you've said Amachzeh Shechinat Olet Zion, then you go back to Ritzay.
Okay.
But if you've already finished and you've taken your 3 steps backwards, then you've got to start again.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I've got one question to do with what you said. Why then do we blow the shofar at the end of Yom Kippur? Because that's effectively already nighttime.
Yes, that is a minhag. It is not a mitzvah from the Torah, and it is purely minhag. It has no halachic significance. If you don't blow the shofar on Yom Kippur at the end, it's still the end of Yom Kippur. I'm guessing that there will be some communities somewhere that don't do it because it's a minhag, and the minhag has arisen because it gives it a sort of finality, it gives it chashivut, it gives it importance. And in fact, we see that in our own community. People come out for Ne'ilah because the Ne'ilah is the culmination of Yom Kippur. And there are people that come out just to hear the shofar at the end of Ne'ilah, which is a bit of a shame, really, because there is no real significance to that at all. It's a sort of, if I can use this expression loosely, a made-up minhag.
No, I think it's stronger than that, actually. If you go into the Sephardi shul, before they blow the shofar at the end of Ne'ilah, they quote the psukim from Parashat Bahar about blowing the shofar on Yom Kippur in the Yovel year.
Yeah, I was going to say that there is the Yom Kippur shofar is connected with the Yovel, which is a mitzvah d'oraita, and I think that's dafka. There's a difference there between Sephardim and Ashkenazim, and I think that's the reason why. And it goes back to the same difference between on Seder night. I had this discussion with somebody the other day. Can't remember. It might have been Johnny. I can't remember. That we Ashkenazim, dafka, and I remember this as a kid. We never had roast meat on Seder night. Why didn't we have roast meat on Seder night? Because chas v'sholom, somebody might think that we have done a Korban Pesach, and you're not allowed to do a Korban Pesach because we haven't got a Beit HaMikdash. So we would dafka not have roast meat on Seder night. The Sephardim, not all Sephardim, I don't know what you did in Marcel in your house, but your house was a bit of a mishmash, really. But the Sephardim, the real hardcore Sephardim, dafka did have roast lamb on Seder night, and not only did they have roast lamb, they'd have a great big zeroah of it. Our little fligelech, our little schmatic little wing that we used to have of a chicken, was pathetic compared to their huge, great leg of lamb that they would have on their Seder table. And there is and it's the same sort of thing here with the shofar on Yom Kippur. The Ashkenazim dafka are showing this is not a Yovel shofar because we haven't got a Yovel, we haven't got a Sanhedrin to declare a Yovel, and chas v'sholom, anybody should think that we are pretending that we have got a Yovel. On the other hand, the Sephardim are much more confident about their practice, and they're not so scared of their own shadows, as it were. And they're much more, in your face with it all, and it's great. And they definitely do this psukim of the Yovel. They're not worried that anybody will think. Of course, nobody's going to think this is Yovel. And it's a difference in mindset. It's not philosophy so much, but mindset. It's a different mindset between the Ashkenazi sort of, what Ravido used to call the Kalta Ashkenazim. the cold Ashkenazim and the warm, hot-blooded Sfardim. It's just a different mindset. It's that's another interesting.
In the Rinat Yisrael and Siddur or Machzor for Yom HaAtzmaut, don't they have a Tkiyat Shofar there at the end of the Tefillah for Mariv?
Yes, that's true. And again, that's giving out, but I'm sure you're not suggesting that that's a mitzvah d'oraita.
No.
Although, you know,
I'm just suggesting another time when the shofar is blown at night.
Maybe in our brave new world of Tchelet that we will make it a mitzvah. But yeah, it's again, that's giving it importance, isn't it? It's like, this is an important time, and we're going to sound the shofar. Those famous photographs and video footage of 1967 of Rabbi Goren, that's right, Johnny. That famous footage of Rabbi Goren sounding the shofar at the Kotel in June 1967. It's a symbol of importance. It's a symbol of gravitas, and that's why we do it on Yom Ha'atzmaut. That's why Rav Goren did it at that time spontaneously. And that's why we do it at the end of Yom Kippur as well. But Dioraita, the only time we blow the shofar Dioraita, today at least, is on Rosh Hashanah. If we go back to a Dioraita situation and we have a special Kohen HaMashiach, then we will blow the shofar when we go out to war as well.
They do that.
What?
One of my kids was in car sled, and just that they had a tekes just before they went into Gaza, and at the end of the tekes, the Rav blew the shofar.
Yofi. This is how amazing what David has just described. How amazing that we are bringing back to life the Torah, which has sadly lay dormant, or parts of the Torah that sadly lay dormant for 2,500 years. I mean, it's just remarkable. That's something that really, really excites me to hear what David just said.
And by the way, it was Shabbat as well.
Wow.
When they had this tekes, it was still Shabbat. They would docher Shabbat because of the situation, and of course, normally one wouldn't blow the shofar on Shabbat either.
I bet it was a Sephardi Rav. Okay. Any other comments? That was brilliant.
Yeah, Johnny.
Yes,
Johnny,
Stephen.
just a footnote here from Rabbi Sachs on this Tikkuva Chodesh. He says Rosh Hashanah is the only biblical festival that takes place on Rosh Chodesh, the new moon. So it became known as Keseh, hidden. That was from Vayikra Rabbah. Then he says, some relate the word Keseh to Kiseh, a throne, and thus to Rosh Hashanah, when God is enthroned as king. That comes from Meshech Chochmah.
Okay.
So
great.
That was what Leon said about.
Yeah, maybe.
There and
yeah, I'm not sure etymologically it works, but certainly, certainly drush it works for sure. Excellent. Great.
No. It's this forno brings that shut as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Excellent, wonderful. Anything else? Any more gems before we go?
Non-relevant. When is the 104th? Hopefully,
February the 22nd. Bezrat Hashem.
Thank you.
Okay.
When is Rosh Chodesh, Johnny, next week? What day is Rosh Chodesh?
Rosh Chodesh is, hang on, I'll just tell you
Tuesday,
exactly.
Wednesday.
It's
Wednesday.
Tuesday and Wednesday.
Right,
Tuesday and Wednesday.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll see you all. Hopefully, this Shabbat, it looks like it's going to be pretty miserable weather. So we will be inside. There's plenty of room for everybody that feels comfortable to come. Masks are worn at all times. So please come if you feel like you want to come. And if you don't, we understand. The following Shabbat, week on Shabbat, is Rav Yuval's first Shabbat. So we hope that we will have a nice full house then to welcome him in, and we'll be sending out stuff about that in due course. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you, Johnny.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you,
Bye.
Johnny.